Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a land battle. This is going to be a classic matchup between age-old rivals, the Lizardmen and the Skaven. So, my opponent is playing as the Skaven. It looks like we've got some clan rats for the most part in the front lines. A couple poison, one globadiers, actually just one. But a couple warp... Oh, it's just the one warp block Giselle as well. I could have swore there was two. Avalanche mortars. Bunch of rat ogres in the back, led by a gray seer of plague, and then we have the council guard storm vermin in the back. Looks like a couple plague monks. Pretty fun little army here from the Skaven side of things. For the Lizardmen, I have gone with an Itza color scheme. I brought Gorok. I did not bring Croak. I know, not as cinematic or thematic as I could have been, but I really have been enjoying the Lore of Heavens recently. This Uranen's Thunderbolt just does tons of damage, and I think it goes really, really well on any kind of caster, cheap ones or expensive. Skink Priest, especially on that Stegodon's going to have a lot of fun. We have a couple Chameleon Skinks in the front. This is pretty classic Lizardman, I would think. Skink Cohort backed up with Saurus Warrior Shields. And then on the side, we have Cold One Riders. And up in the air, we do have Colossedon Hunters. So, let's see how this all plays out. I know it's been about, I think, a week since the last upload, and I'm still trying to keep that weekly upload, though my goal of trying to make it to 2 is not actually happening, so apologies on that front. We'll see if I can get better at it. It's kind of funny, I've been getting this map a lot with land battles, which has got this really annoying, like, ditch here. I feel like you could benefit greatly from moving your army up more. I want to say my opponent was backed up a bit. Beautiful damage. See, that's what I'm talking about with that Lore of Heavens. Now, to be fair, the Uranen's Thunderbolt does a lot of damage. It looks like Skink Priest got 269 HP right there, or sorry, value there. Dealing a nice, decent chunk, almost half HP off the Plague Monks. But I will say this Thunderbolt is very slow, so it actually is relatively easy to dodge as long as you are paying attention. I think it works best when you are caught up in fights, and then you have to force your opponent to either dodge and take a bad trade, or just get these spells. So trying to thread the needle with these Cold One Riders into the Warp Block Giselles. I'm pretty happy with how that went for the most part. At least I'm getting the Warp Block Giselles offline for the moment. Being showered by this Avalanche Mortar, this Saurus Warrior unit is basically gone. All these Skink Cohort look like they're hurting coming on in as well. But we're going to try threading another needle here with these Cold One Riders. We just got to get them in position, and I'm going to try and get them all the way back to the Avalanche Mortars. I mean, at this point, the Avalanche Mortars aren't going to serve as much a purpose. They're going to be really good at clearing out these Chameleon Skinks, so regardless, they are a high-value target. I'm overstepping just a little bit here, I must say, with the Colossedon Hunters. I overestimate their defensive capabilities. Council Guard and the Rat Ogres coming in from both sides is absolutely going to wipe the floor. I typically can get really good value out of these Colossedon Hunters. They are anti-large Ripperdactyls, essentially, and they can basically dominate, maybe not win the air game, but definitely chunk your opponent's air. Obviously, Skaven don't have that, but I still think they're a very, very good piece for taking out, for example, this Gray Seer. See, he's got 100 armor, large model size. If he were alone, that fight would have went way better, but big misplay by me. The Colossedon Hunters are out. Skink Priest has moved in, and let's see how much damage he does to those Rat Ogres. See, it's a decent chunk. I want to say that's about quarter of the HP he got with that Uranen's Thunderbolt, so it's very, very impressive. Gorok beating up some Ogres on this side. We've pretty much broken through this entire portion of the Ratman army, which is really good. It's opening us up to a lot of access in the backline. Balance of Power is not quite swinging our way, funnily enough, though. So as much as it is nice to break through that formation, we still have a lot to deal with here. Rat Ogres, for the most part, are all pretty darn healthy. They're still doing their thing. It looks like one of them's gotten routed off by Gorok. Luckily, this was not too much of a cav-focused build. Ooh, looks like we got a really good cast coming down. Oh, just to summon a Clan Rats. All right, pinning these Cold One Riders in place. Very good. We did not go for a cav-heavy build. I typically love to bring Horned Ones, but Cold One Riders are pretty much the best, like, cheap defensive cavalry option, at least for the Lizardmen. So I just kind of stuck with that, and they were good enough for interrupting the backline. I was pretty happy with their performance there. So Clan Rats, thin the herd, just dealing a bunch of damage and getting these ones to rout. We finish off this whole section of the battlefield. Now, there are a couple units that are coming back from the fight, so we're going to need to clean those up as well. But for the most part, the main engagements are all here in this section as of right now. Council Guard Storm Vermin are in on that Skink Priest of Heaven, so he's taking a lot of damage. As you can see, he's getting chunked to that half HP. Gorok's alone, but he is an absolute Chad. He's a tank and a half, so even though these Cold One Riders do get routed off, he's going to be able to start chunking either these Rat Ogres. Clan Rats aren't going to be too much of a problem, although that is a summon, so they'll go away regardless. And the Greyseer as well aren't going to be much of a match for Gorok. They don't really have much that can face him at this point, and Balance of Power is starting to swing ever so slightly in our favor, but in all honesty, I don't see what the Rats have that can necessarily defeat Gorok. Looks like Avalanche Mortars. Oh, they got one last volley off onto those Skink Cohort over there. A couple more Rat Ogres in the back. A little bit of micro being slipped up. There's just too much going on here in this main force. Lots of Lizardmen have been routed off, though. As you can see, these Warriors with shields routed off. These ones are just about to rout off. We have some Skink Cohort coming back in, but they'll probably get terrified or routed relatively quickly. But for now, Chameleon Skink... the Chameleon Skinks right here. We're trying to get lots of shots in on the Greyseer Plague. Now, it is 100 armor, so it's not going to be the most damage, but they're definitely not going to be wanting to shoot at anything else at this point. And as you can see, this one just ran out of ammo. So our options with killing the Greyseer Plague are also running thin. We don't have any anti-large, dedicated anti-large. However, we've got a decent goon squad here. I guess it does have anti-infantry, so maybe it has a chance at chunking Gorok pretty well. Council Guard Storm Vermin are still all around this Skink Priest of Heavens. As you can see, that Stegodon is really hurting. But it's actually, let's see what the damage here is. It's actually pretty much already paid for itself, so we're not too worried if that goes down. And luckily here, the Greyseer Plague was focus fired enough by the last couple ammunition volleys from these Chameleon Skinks. That's going to start swinging the balance of power much further in our favor. Our opponent has one last Bastion back here. Couple Warplock Jizales. Looks like they had rallied, and the Rat Ogres as well. Nice Thunderbolt, just to kind of, I guess, rout the Plague Monks, nothing much else. But for the most part, it's pretty much just scraps with the Skaven army. Nothing that can kill Gorok. I think we are about to call this a GG. I don't know if my opponent surrenders right away or if it carries on a little bit longer. Regardless, I kind of liked this play from Lizardmen. I feel like this is I want to say an older meta for the Lizardmen, and don't quote me on that. I wasn't hyper active in the first early stages of Warhammer 2. But most of the units here brought are just base game units. I think Gorok, obviously, he's free LC, so if you don't have any DLCs, this is a really effective army you can run as the Lizardmen. As well for the Skaven, actually. The Skaven, I think most of their armies, or most of their units in here were also FLC, you know, minus the Warplock Jizales and the Clan Scryer units. But for the most part, it's just a really slow-moving wall. Skaven did a good job of getting rid of that front line, but the Chameleon Skinks were pretty much uncontested. They were able to fire off all their ammo, which gets them tons of value, and then Gorok himself is a front line. It's just so hard to get rid of that Lord. So, let's check the damage values real quick. Gorok not quite paying for himself. I think he was run in this battle about 1,500, so, you know, but that's not really what you expect. He's full HP. You want him to last. You want him to just tank. So damage is not exactly the #1 thing you want to get out of Gorok. Obviously, the Colostodon Hunter is not paying for themselves at all, but the Skink Priest of Heavens doing fantastic on that Stegodon. Not a cheap model, so I'm not sure it's 100% worth. Both Cold One Riders actually doing really good for their value. The rest of this, not so much. I mean, these Chameleon Skinks, obviously, some pretty good value across the board, but most of that came from this top row here, minus obviously these Colostodon Hunters. For the Skaven side of things, we have the Greyseer, which same, I think, rule as Gorok, only this is a caster, so he had a lot of summons, and that's not going to be counted here, so not the worst value. It is what it is. Avalanche Mortars, 1,000 value, not too bad for how quickly they were engaged in combat with. Council Guard getting tons of value, actually. They pretty much beat up, they took all the HP off of that Skink Priest, so really good from them. Warplock Jizales, definitely not worth, but I mean, 800 gold, don't get me wrong, pretty good value. But for the most part, I think the big no-nos here is these poor Plague Monks. I think Plague Monks need a bit of a nerf in some aspects, but they definitely did not do well this round. It looks like one of those Rat Ogres did decent, but for the most part, obviously, losing army of the Skaven, not going to have the highest numbers. Regardless, I hope you did enjoy watching this video. I will try my best to keep the content coming. Let me know if there's anything specific you would like to see, and thanks again for watching. I'll talk to you later.